There are certain figures in history who stand at the threshold between worlds. They belong fully to neither the past nor the future, neither to the orthodox nor the heretical. They walk a line that most people cannot see, and they speak a language that offends the comfortable and awakens the seeking. Paracelsus was one of these figures. He lived 500 years ago, in an age of rigid scholasticism, when physicians memorized ancient Greek texts and called that medicine, when the Church held a monopoly on spiritual truth, and when anyone who dared to look directly at nature, rather than through the lens of approved authorities, was viewed with suspicion, or worse. And yet this strange, wandering doctor from the Swiss mountains did exactly that. He looked directly. He burned his textbooks. He learned from midwives and executioners and herbalists. He healed the incurable. And he spoke of things that, even now, most people are not ready to hear. What you are about to receive is not simply the biography of an eccentric Renaissance physician. It is an invitation into a way of seeing, a cosmology, an anthropology, a practical mysticism that has the power to reorder your understanding of who you are and what you're capable of becoming. So let us begin, not with dates and places, but with the spirit of the man himself. Part 1. The Path of the Rebel Mystic. Paracelsus was born Theophrastus von Hohenheim in 1493 in a small village near Zurich. His father was a physician, and from childhood, the boy was immersed in the world of healing arts and natural philosophy. But unlike most children of learned families, Paracelsus did not simply absorb what he was taught. He questioned it, he tested it, and eventually he rejected it. He traveled. Not to the great universities, though he did study at several, but to the margins of society. He walked across Europe, through Germany, France, Spain, Italy, the Netherlands, Scandinavia, possibly as far as Russia and the Middle East, and everywhere he went, he sought out the people who actually knew things, the village healers, the alchemists working in secret, the wandering monks, the miners who understood the hidden properties of metals, the executioners who knew the body's breaking points. He called this the Book of Nature, and he read it with his entire being. When he returned to the academic world, he was a changed man. He took a position at the University of Basel, and promptly caused a scandal by lecturing in German rather than Latin, making his teachings accessible to common people. He publicly burned the works of Galen and Avicenna, the ancient authorities upon whom all respectable medicine was built. He declared that experience and observation were worth more than 1,000 years of commentary on texts that no one had ever tested. The establishment was horrified. He was driven out. He spent the rest of his life wandering again, healing where he could, writing furiously, and dying in relative obscurity at the age of 47. But here is the essential point. Paracelsus was not merely a rebel, he was a mystic in physician's clothing. His rejection of external authority was not born of arrogance, but of a fierce commitment to direct knowledge, to what he called the light of nature, the intuitive, God-given capacity of the human soul to perceive truth without intermediaries. He believed that every person carries this light within them, and he believed that the entire purpose of education, of medicine, of spiritual practice, was to clear away the obstructions that prevent this inner light from shining. This is where his teaching begins. Part 2. The Living Mirror of the Universe. To understand Paracelsus, you must first enter his cosmology, his vision of what the universe actually is. For him, the universe was not a machine. It was not a collection of dead matter governed by mechanical laws. It was alive, utterly, thoroughly, mysteriously alive. He called this the doctrine of the one life. There is nothing dead in nature, the stone, the plant, the star, the human being. All of these are expressions of a single, living, intelligent force that permeates everything. This force has many names. The alchemists called it the anima mundi, the soul of the world. Paracelsus often called it the light of nature or the astral light. But whatever name you give it, the essential point is this. You live in a living universe, and you are not separate from it. Now, before this living universe took form, before stars and planets, before mountains and oceans, and before human beings, there was something else. Paracelsus called it the Iliaster. You might think of it as the primordial potential, the undifferentiated source, the cosmic womb from which all things emerge. From this Iliaster arose what he called the mysterium magnum, the great mystery, also known as the limbus or the chaos. This was not chaos in the sense of disorder, it was chaos in the ancient Greek sense, the formless matrix, the fertile darkness, the nursery of all possible beings. And out of this matrix, through a process of differentiation and crystallization, emerged all the forms of the manifest world, the minerals, the plants, the animals, the humans, the stars. Here is the crucial insight, because everything emerged from the same source, everything is connected. More than connected, everything contains within itself a reflection of the whole. This is the doctrine that later became famous as above, so below, the Hermetic axiom. But Paracelsus gave it a specific and practical meaning, and he said, man is the microcosm, the universe is the macrocosm, and they are mirrors of each other. What does this mean? It means that everything existing in the outer world, every planet, every element, every force, exists also within the human constitution. The sun that shines in the sky also shines within you. The iron in the mountains also flows in your blood. The invisible influences of the stars also move through your soul. You are not a small creature looking out at a vast external cosmos. You are a complete cosmos yourself, and the outer universe is simply your own nature writ large. This is not poetry. For Paracelsus, it was practical medicine. If you want to heal the body, you must understand its correspondence to the stars. If you want to master your destiny, you must learn to govern the planets within your own soul. We will return to this, but first, let us look more closely at what the human being actually is. Part 3. The Sevenfold Constitution of Man. Paracelsus taught that the human being is not one thing, but many things woven together. We are composite creatures, made of layers upon layers of substance and spirit. At the most fundamental level, he distinguished between two Adams, two aspects of the human being that have entirely different origins and entirely different destinies. The first is what he called the animal man. This is the part of you that was born from nature, your physical body, your instincts, your desires, your automatic reactions. This animal man is made of the same elements as stones and trees and beasts. It is subject to the same laws, and, importantly, it is mortal. When you die, the animal man returns to the earth from which it came, but there is another man within you. Paracelsus called this the divine man, or the spiritual man. This aspect of you did not come from nature, it came from God, directly, without intermediary. It is the breath of life that was breathed into Adam in the Genesis story. It is the spark of divine intelligence that makes you capable of knowing truth, of loving beauty, of willing the good. And this man is immortal. It does not dissolve when the body dies, it returns to its source. Now, between these two, between the animal and the divine, there are several intermediate layers. One of the most important is what Paracelsus called the sidereal body, or the astral body. This is not your physical form. It is a subtler body, made of a subtler substance, something like condensed light or crystallized imagination. It interpenetrates your physical body during life, but it is not identical to it. It is the vehicle of your emotions, your dreams, your psychic impressions. It is also the part of you that connects to the influences of the stars. When you die, this sidereal body separates from the physical corpse. For a time, It lingers in what Paracelsus called the earth sphere, and this is the origin of ghosts, of apparitions, of hauntings. These are not the actual spirits of the dead, in his view. They are the discarded astral shells, slowly dissolving, sometimes confused for the person they once belonged to. There is also what he called the evestrum, a kind of astral double or shadow that grows alongside you throughout life. This evestrum is not bound by time in the way your physical body is. It can perceive future events. It can appear in distant places. While your body remains where it is the source of prophecy, of premonition, of clairvoyance. All of this may sound strange to modern ears, but consider this. Paracelsus was trying to account for experiences that human beings have always reported, dreams that come true, visions of the dead, the sense of being in two places at once, the feeling that you are more than your body. He was constructing a map of the invisible anatomy of the human being. And here is where it becomes practical. Part 4. The creative power of imagination. One of the most revolutionary teachings of Paracelsus concerns the nature of imagination. In modern usage, we tend to think of imagination as something unreal, a mental playground where we fantasize about things that don't exist. Daydreaming, escapism, the opposite of reality. Paracelsus saw it completely differently, and for him, imagination is a creative power. It is not merely the reflection of reality. It is the generator of reality. When you imagine something with sufficient intensity, clarity, and conviction, you're not merely entertaining yourself, you are shaping the astral light. You are planting seeds in the invisible world that will eventually bear fruit in the visible one. He used the term sperma to describe this. Your imagination is pregnant. It conceives forms. It gives birth to subtle realities that then, over time, condense into physical circumstances, into health or disease, into events and encounters. This is not metaphor. He meant it literally. Consider, if you spend years imagining yourself as weak, sick, and defeated, you're not merely thinking negative thoughts. You're sculpting your astral body into a form that corresponds to weakness. And because your astral body interpenetrates and influences your physical body, that form eventually manifests as actual illness, actual defeat. Conversely, if you hold with steady clarity and feeling the image of yourself as whole, as strong, as aligned with divine purpose, you are reshaping the invisible template from which your visible life is generated. This is why Paracelsus placed such emphasis on the discipline of imagination. Not as a technique for getting what you want, but as a fundamental responsibility of the spiritual life. You are always imagining. The question is whether you are imagining consciously and in alignment with truth, or unconsciously and in alignment with fear. Closely connected to imagination is the power of will. Part 5. Faith as spiritual will. Paracelsus redefined faith in a way that most religious people would find shocking. For him, faith was not belief. It was not intellectual assent to doctrines or historical claims. It was not even trust in a remote deity. Faith, for Paracelsus, was a force. It was the active, concentrated power of the will directed toward a specific end. He said that faith is spiritual knowledge, not knowledge in the sense of information, but knowledge in the sense of direct contact, of union. When you have faith in something, that you are connected to it, you are drawing its power into yourself. You are becoming a conduit for its influence. And this faith, this spiritual will, is the most powerful force available to the human being. He wrote that faith can overcome all spirits of nature. It can cure diseases, it can move mountains, not metaphorically, but actually it can command the elements, it can call things into being that did not exist before. But here is the catch. Faith must be unwavering. The moment doubt enters, the circuit is broken, the power dissipates, the work fails. This is why so few people accomplish anything real through spiritual means. They want results, but they are riddled with doubt. They hope for outcomes, but they do not know them. They try to will things, but their will is fractured by fear, by cynicism, by the constant chatter of the calculating mind. Paracelsus was uncompromising on this point. If you wish to use the powers of the spirit, you must become a person of single, unwavering will. You must learn to want one thing so completely that nothing in you contradicts it. This is the essence of what he called true magic. Part 6, Magic and Sorcery. The word magic has been so degraded in modern usage that we must be careful to recover its original meaning. For Paracelsus, magic was not stage tricks, it was not superstition, it was not even what we would call the occult in the pejorative sense. Magic, for him, was supreme wisdom. It was the science of using invisible powers to produce visible effects. It was the practical application of the laws that govern the astral and spiritual worlds. A person who understands these laws and works in harmony with them is a magician, not in the sense of a conjurer, but in the sense of a master. They understand that the visible world is the effect, and the invisible world is the cause. They know how to operate at the level of causes. The physician who heals by manipulating the patient's vital magnetism is practicing magic. The alchemist who transforms base matter into gold, not through chemical reactions, but through spiritual transmutation, is practicing magic. The sage, who rules their own passions and thereby escapes the tyranny of fate, is practicing magic. All true religion, Paracelsus would say, is magic, because all true religion works through will, through faith, through the creative power of the spirit. But there is a shadow side. The same powers that can heal can also harm. The same imagination that can create angels can create demons. The same will that can liberate can also enslave. Sorcery, in Paracelsus's vocabulary, is the misuse of magical powers. It is magic directed by selfishness, by malice, by the desire to dominate or destroy. And he was unsparing in his warnings. Sorcery rebounds. The energies you send out come back to you. The demons you create turn upon their creator. The sorcerer eventually becomes the victim of their own work. This is not a moral platitude, it is an occult law. The astral light is a mirror. What you project into it returns to you with interest, which is why the only safe path is the path of wisdom, of virtue, of alignment with the divine will. The magician who serves God is protected. The sorcerer who serves themselves is doomed. Part 7. The Art of Healing. Now we come to the practical heart of Paracelsus's teaching, medicine. He approached healing not as a mechanical repair of a broken machine, but as a sacred art, a sacrament almost, that required the physician to be as much priest as scientist. He taught that disease arises from 5 distinct sources, and a true healer must learn to diagnose which source is at work in any given case. The first source he called ens astrale, the astral cause. This refers to the influence of cosmic forces, of planetary positions, of the subtle energies that flow through the universe and through the human body. Some diseases arise because a person's inner stars, their emotional and psychic constitution, have fallen out of harmony with the outer stars. The treatment in such cases is not a chemical drug, but a restoration of cosmic alignment. The second source is ens veneni, the poisonous cause. This includes everything we would call toxins, impure food, polluted air, harmful substances taken into the body. Here, the treatment is purification and elimination. The third source is ens naturale, the natural cause. This refers to the inherited constitution, the temperament you were born with, the strengths and weaknesses encoded in your physical form. Some diseases arise simply because the body's natural balance has been disturbed, and the treatment is the restoration of that balance through proper diet, rest, and lifestyle. The fourth source is ens spirituale, the spiritual cause. This is illness arising from the soul, from grief, from guilt, from unresolved emotional wounds, from the destructive influence of other people's ill-wishing or envy. Here, the treatment must address the invisible roots, not just the visible symptoms. And the fifth source is Einsiedeln, the divine cause. Some illness, Paracelsus taught, is sent by God, either as a lesson, as a purgation, or as a calling to transformation. In such cases, no medicine will work until the spiritual purpose of the illness has been recognized and accepted. A physician who only knows how to prescribe drugs can address perhaps 2 of these 5 causes. A true physician must be able to work on all levels. And here we encounter one of Paracelsus's most profound teachings. The physician cannot heal unless they possess virtue, not just knowledge, not just skill. Virtue. He meant this literally. The healing power that flows through a physician is not a mechanical force, it is a spiritual force. It responds to the quality of the person channeling it. A physician filled with greed, with arrogance, with contempt for patients, cannot truly heal, no matter how many drugs they prescribe. They may suppress symptoms, they cannot cure. A physician filled with compassion, with humility, with genuine faith in the healing power of nature and God, such a person becomes a conduit for forces far greater than any medicine. This is why Paracelsus called the quack doctor a murderer, not because they actively kill, but because they pretend to heal while blocking the true healing power with their own corrupt character. Part 8. The Mumia and Magnetic Healing. Paracelsus taught something that modern minds may find very strange, that physical objects retain a vital connection to the people they came from. He called this the mumia, the life essence that lingers in blood, hair, clothing, personal effects. Even after these things are separated from the body, an invisible thread of sympathy remains. This is the principle behind what he called magnetic healing. The art of treating a disease by treating an object that has been in contact with the diseased person. The classic example is the weapon salve, a remedy applied not to the wound, but to the weapon that caused it. It sounds absurd to materialist thinking, but Paracelsus's logic was clear. If the vital magnetism of the wounded person still clings to the weapon, then healing the wound in the weapon will transmit that healing back through the sympathetic link to the actual wound. Whether or not you accept this literally, the principle is profound. You are connected to everything you touch, everything you create, everything that has been part of you. You leave traces of yourself everywhere. And through those traces, you can be reached. This is why so many magical and spiritual traditions emphasize the importance of what you allow into your space, what objects you surround yourself with, what residues of other people's energy you carry. You're not an isolated unit. You're a node in a web of sympathetic connections. Part 9. Alchemy and the Transformation of the Soul. We cannot speak of Paracelsus without speaking of alchemy. He was one of the great alchemists of his age, and he invented medicines still used today, including the original form of laudanum. But his understanding of alchemy went far beyond making chemicals. For Paracelsus, true alchemy was the art of separation, separating the pure from the impure, the essential from the accidental, the gold from the dross. This applied to physical substances, yes, but it applied even more to the human soul. We are all mixtures. We contain gold and lead. We contain light and shadow. We contain the divine man and the animal man, and woven together in a tangled knot. The alchemical work is the untangling. It is the purification of the soul, the extraction of the immortal essence from the mortal husk. It is the transformation of the old Adam, the fallen, animalized, enslaved consciousness Ketu, into the new Adam, the awakened, spiritualized, sovereign being. This is why the alchemists spoke in such strange riddles, in images of dragons and lions, of conjunctions and dissolutions. They were encoding the stages of inner transformation in symbolic language. And Paracelsus would say, you do not need to find the philosopher's stone in a laboratory. The laboratory is yourself. The lead you must transmute is your own dense, reactive, unconscious nature. The gold you seek to produce is the radiant, awakened, God-aligned will. Part 10. Ruling the Inner Stars. One of the most liberating teachings Paracelsus offers concerns astrology and fate. He accepted that the stars influence human beings. Your temperament, your inclinations, your strengths and weaknesses, all of these are shaped by the astral forces present at your birth. But, and this is crucial, the stars do not determine you. They incline, they do not compel. The stars rule the animal man. But the divine man is superior to the stars. If you identify solely with your animal nature, with your appetites, your fears, your automatic reactions, then yes, you are subject to fate. The planets turn and you turn with them, helplessly pulled by forces you cannot see. But if you awaken the divine man within you, if you learn to act from wisdom, from will, from alignment with the source of all things, then you step outside the wheel. You become the ruler of your own inner stars. This is what Paracelsus meant when he said, a wise man rules over the stars. Not by fighting them, not by denying them, but by recognizing that the stars within you are yours to govern. Your inner Mars, your capacity for anger and aggression can be ruled by your will. Your inner Venus, your capacity for desire and attachment, can be channeled by your wisdom. Your inner Saturn, your tendency toward melancholy and limitation, can be transmuted by your understanding. You are not a victim of your horoscope, you are an alchemist working with the raw materials of your own nature. Part 11. The Three Questions. Let us close with three questions that Paracelsus, through Franz Hartmann's exposition, leaves for the contemplative practitioner. The first question concerns the source of action. Ask yourself, honestly, am I acting today through my animal reason, calculating profit, comfort, survival's advantage, or am I acting through something higher? Is there, beneath my decisions, a current of intuition, of alignment with the whole, of responsiveness to the quiet voice within? The animal reason is not evil, it is necessary, but it is not sufficient. It knows only the visible. It cannot perceive the invisible causes that shape the visible effects. A life lived entirely from animal reason is a life lived on the surface, reacting to shadows, never touching the substance. The second question concerns the nature of obstacles. When you face difficulty, illness, conflict, failure, how do you see it? Is it merely a mechanical breakdown, a piece of bad luck, something to be fixed from the outside? Or is it possible that the obstacle is a crystallization of something within you, that the disease is the body's way of expressing a dissonance in the soul, that the failure is the universe's way of redirecting a misaligned will? Paracelsus spoke of tartaric diseases, illnesses caused by accumulations, by residues, by things not properly digested or released. And this applies not only to physical substances, but to thoughts, to emotions, to grudges held, to truths avoided. The question is, what have you not digested? What residue is calcifying within you? The third question concerns the reality of the invisible. Do you truly believe, not as an intellectual concept, but as a felt conviction, that your imagination is creative? That what you think and feel and vividly picture is not merely a private entertainment, but a force shaping the astral light around you? If you believe this, then you must ask, what am I birthing right now? In this very moment, in the stream of my imagination, am I creating angels or demons? Am I cultivating a garden or a wasteland? You are always creating. The only question is whether you are creating consciously. Closing. The invitation. Paracelsus lived a short, turbulent, misunderstood life. He was hounded by the establishment, accused of heresy and charlatanism, forced to wander without rest or recognition. He died with his work unfinished, his teachings scattered, his reputation in ruins. And yet, 5 centuries later, we are still speaking of him. His ideas still provoke, his vision still illuminates. Something in his teaching refuses to die. Perhaps this is because he touched something real, not a system to be believed, but a reality to be encountered. A way of seeing that, once glimpsed, cannot be unseen. You are a microcosm. The universe is within you. The stars that seem so distant are also the forces moving through your soul. You possess powers you have barely begun to suspect. Your imagination is not a toy, your will is not merely a preference, your faith is not just a feeling, and the path of transformation is open. The lead can become gold. The animal can awaken to the divine. The scattered, fragmented, sleepwalking self can be gathered, purified, and restored to its original unity. This is not something you must believe. It is something you can test. Paracelsus would ask no more of you than this. Look directly, trust your own light, and begin. The fire that consumes is also the fire that illuminates. What will you burn? What will you become?